fun.
All right, finally. Sorry, we were having some technical difficulties before going on air. I know Petty Fan's been having some incompatibilities with Skype, and we're not exactly sure why.
I think it's almost because of how old the thing we've been using is, because we switched to this new one and it's working just fine.
It's possible, it might be different from the I think everything recent with Skype and on Pog shoes, and quite frankly.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, we're still working on the best way forward on that because you know we we might do like new Skype or we might move the production over to Discord. Like though we're having some problems on the Discord side.
Yeah, I was gonna say we had some problems with the Discord last time we tried to use that.
So we're kind of beset by technical problems. Nothing too major, but they are there, and they've been slowing things down a bit. Anyway, so welcome to another week of Fragments Silicon Reviews. This week, first we have Alwa's Awakening. So this is a retro-styled Metroidvania platformer that was released just a few days ago, actually. I think on Thursday. So, and it's a game that's really embracing that retro moniker.
Yeah, a lot of games are retro style. This is a game that if you told me it was originally made for the NES and never released, and it just got released on Steam for some reason, I probably would believe it.
Yeah, it's like I'm willing to bet that it's doing some trickery that the actual NES couldn't do.
Yeah, like looking at the trailer here, it looks more Super NES than NES.
No, it definitely looks like an NES game to me.
I think they are cheating
got
on
the color
colors.
palette.
Yeah, that might be why
I
I'm thinking it looks more Super NES to me.
It's very 8-bit style, but I do think they are cheating on color more than, say, Shovel Knight did.
It's possible. Like what I'm saying is, yeah, its aesthetic is 8 bits, but that's not the only thing. Its music is chip tunes, and it sounds like an 8-bit game. Although I'm not
sure. The controls are pretty much 2 buttons. There's a jump button and an attack button. Although there's also a charge magic button that I didn't get to the point where you can actually use that, but
yeah. And if I think the game series that it's most emulating is Castlevania of all things. It says there's actually not a lot of Metroid here in terms of design. When I was playing this game, I thought more Castlevania 2. A lot.
Yeah, there aren't that many collectibles. Or rather, I should say there aren't that many power-ups. There are plenty of little magic stones to collect.
Right. And, as far as abilities, there are some, and there are items, but, just aesthetically and, the jumping reminded me more of, Castlevania than, say, Metroid.
Mm-hmm.
It's also, this is a game that actually involves platforming. You will actually be challenged on your platforming skills.
Yeah, even in the early stuff, there are some fall-away platform paths that you have to jump over while being shot at. So
yeah, and two of the 3 major items are designed around your jumping. The first is the green block, which
is pushable for activating switches and also
right.
is a platform to jump on.
Yes. And the second item is a bubble, which you use to get to higher spaces.
Do those work like the randomly spawning bubbles in some, or not randomly, but regularly spawning bubbles in some areas?
Yes, they do. They work exactly like that. In fact, I'm not sure if there's an upgrade to that where you can put out multiple bubbles. Now, I know there is an upgrade for the green block, what makes it float in water.
Yeah, because at first it just disintegrates like you do.
Yeah, and you can there are green blocks around that you can push into water. Mm-hmm. Kind of a portent of that item. I did not get that item because I got stuck in an area. More on that later. But the third item is a fireball, which it's actually I think it's a bolt of electricity, given the thunderbolt symbol.
Yeah, I kind of vaguely assumed there would be roughly elemental upgrades.
Yeah, well, the lightning open doors with that symbol.
Yeah, and I assume it's also an attack that has a range further than not far.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I really didn't like about this game. The attack weapon of the staff is really short. It's almost it's not very far.
Which I think makes sense, sort of in context of you're not really a super. You're a magic user. You're not a.
It does. It sort of makes sense. Although it's I guess this is more a wand than a staff because a staff is a long weapon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, it's the reach of the weapon is less than a body width. So.
Yeah, but the fireball, it's not going to be a primary attack because you can attack long distance with it, but its recharge is quite significant.
Is it the same as all the other things?
No, it's actually really slow compared to the others. That's the point. It's so you can't spam the attack. You can kill enemies with it, but you got to be patient. Another probably the best property about the green block is the defensive capabilities. So
you can hide behind it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it will absorb projectiles. You will need to do this.
Yeah, this is not a game where you have this is a game where you pretty much can take 3 hits unless you get health upgrades.
There is an upgrade for that.
But even then, it's not a lot.
You are a magic user. You are not a tank.
Yeah. Well, it's in the second dungeon, you get a water bottle, and that allows you to refill your health. It's just you can
only refill the water bottle when you get it to a
well.
Barrel or well.
Yeah, it's you can only refill it at certain positions, and when you use that up, you use it up. Oh, and also if you try to reset the game, it'll remember that your water bottle drained.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but this is a game where you have 3 hearts, and it's not a game where you have 3 hearts where most hits do a half or a quarter of a heart.
Nope, it's 3 hits and you're dead. I will say outside of insta-death stuff like pits, that does mean they have the Mega Man spikes there too.
My pinky toe.
Some spikes Mega Man, some are not. Because I've noticed that in the first dungeon especially, there are a lot of places where there's spikes where if you fall on them, you only take 1 heart of damage and you can get off if you're quick enough.
Yes, but but starting in the second dungeon, they start having the Mega Man spikes, and they look like the Mega Man spikes.
Okay, so they're bigger spikes.
Yeah, they're the bigger, rounder spikes. Mm-hmm. Like I said, they look like the distinct spikes in Mega Man. That's a visual cue to let you know that if you touch this, you will die instantly.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the developer specifically referenced that iconography for that purpose. You know, and if you didn't know that, you will learn it when you touch the spike and die. So anyway, yeah, Alwa's Awakening is the culmination of 2 years of work from a developer named, I'm probably going to mispronounce this, Michael Forsland. He, his day job, he works at Zoink Games, a British publisher, and this has been his side project. I'm like, worth noting, he did not directly supply the game to me. I got it from the PR agency, basically. And this was only one code, so Daleks bought his copy.
Yeah, I looked at it, and it looked, because I kind of like retro and Metroidvania type things, I figured it would be worth a shot, and I've enjoyed what I played so far, so.
Yeah, so the story is you are a wizard from another world, let's say, named Alwa.
Zoe? No, it's named Zoe. The world is named Alwa.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, she's
the world
named
you're summoned to.
Yeah, and you're trying to save the land from these evil wizards. Although apparently you might be disturbing the natural order. I'm not exactly sure how the game ends because I was about 3/4 way through when I got stuck in an area. Since this game is is Metroidvania style, you get powers, you open up new areas, and you explore. And I was doing that with the electrical power. And I was starting to hit a lot of walls, well, so to speak, in the form of a lot of water areas where it was, where I needed the flotation device. Fortunately, I'm at the bottom of a place called the Stone Cellar, and I'm not sure if I did a sequence break or if this was like a kind of a hidden technique, but you can't the initial version of the bubble is like you can only use one at a time because your meter has to recharge. But I'm like, if you finagle it just right, you can get on a second bubble. It's kind of hard to do, but it's I think this was an unintentional thing. The more I'm thinking about it, or if it was it's definitely not a reliable technique. But I got.
And you said you contacted the dev, and they said there might be like a walk-throughable wall that was hard to find to get out of there, but possibly not.
There might be, but here's the thing: possible passage to get into the area, and now I can't get out because I need a flotation. I need that flotation item, and here's the thing: the specific room where I'm trying to get through is really designed to thwart your jumping progress. It's like, and I tried to go out the same way I went in, but it won't. The passage won't let me. It's like I can't figure out exactly what's going on. I suspect the invisible wall might be in one of the other rooms because this area has been confounding me because there hasn't been okay, there's one of these collectible stones. So the big collectible in this game are blue orbs. What the blue orbs do is each orb level accounts to a hit on the bosses. The more orbs you have, the lower the health of the bosses will be when you fight them.
Which is useful because the bosses can be kind of annoying.
Yeah, but not too hard either. At least I didn't find any of the bosses hard. It took me a few times to get down their patterns, but I
died a bunch of times to the first boss, but that's mostly because I was having a bit of a hard time nailing down his hitbox when he turns into a giant spider.
I'll be honest, for such a retro style game, the NES difficulty isn't really there. Mind you, it does get difficult at points, and I'm looking at you, one area of the Shrine of the Undersea Monk. Like, oh, geez.
Okay.
I
think if the game did not have such a forgiving respawn thing, then the difficulty would be closer to Nintendo.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why I didn't like this one sequence in the where I was trying to get this one key, but there were all these saw blades and difficult jumps, and the spawn point was actually quite a ways away, so dying sent me all the way back there.
Though it's also worth noting that when you die, you do keep whatever. Like if you die after getting to the end of a maze and picking up a key or a power up, you do get to keep the key or power up.
Yeah, that was helpful because once I got the key, I was just like, fuck it, and suicided out.
And the game does keep a death counter, so you're expected to die quite a bit. But
and
there's probably a way to do it without dying at all, if you're really good at practice a lot.
Yeah, well, there is an achievement for beating the game under a certain time and under a certain amount of deaths. I don't know if the death counter affects the ending or anything substantial, but it is there. In terms of overall design, Alwa's Awakening is pretty small. It's kind of got the design of a 8-bit game. Although,
yeah, the overworld map is not very big.
Yeah, hell, I'm willing to bet there's some actual 8-bit games that are bigger than this one.
Oh, I'm sure there are.
But
like that, I don't know about proportionally, but yeah, like if you're looking at the overall world map, like each of the bosses, I think, is like, or each of the dungeons is like almost a quarter of the world map, I think, or like a fifth or whatever.
Right. I'm like, in terms of like length, I'm like, well, this feels like a 3 to 5 hour game, and like if you're just going through it, because I'm like, I'd say 8 to 10 if you're doing the exploration thing,
And there is stuff you can backtrack to later to get, like there are some lightning gates in the first dungeon.
Yeah, and I'd say it's right, and yeah, there is a significant amount of backtracking, and just all in all, it's a very limited game in terms of scope. But I mean, that's what.
But it does kind of feel like that was intentional.
Yeah. That being said, I admit I wasn't the biggest fan of the game even before I got stuck. It's like, I felt like Zoe was a bit too slow and limited in her jumping, like jumping art.
Which is one of the kind of 8-bit-ish things about it.
Right. I mean, that's
jump. You can only jump to like one block above your head. You do have your jump is pretty floaty. You can get a lot of distance out of it. And there's no running, but yeah, there's only so much you can do with it.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not gonna lie, some like younger players they might just find this game to be archaic.
I can see that happening, because it does have a sort of like part of the NES feel is that there's no dashing, there's no double jumping.
Right. It's it's pretty pure in terms of its intentions. It's a central theme we keep coming back to, but I mean, this is this is the point of the game. It's to do basically a modern day 8-bit game. Even more so than, say, Shovel Knight. I know Shovel Knight is Or
well, Shovel Knight is emulating a different style of game,
right?
Slightly. I mean, Shovel Knight is more like.
Shovel Knight is using a different template.
Yeah, that's what I meant. It has a more kinetic style.
Yeah, like it's emulating more like Capcom platformers. This is more Castlevania. Like, and if you've ever played the old school Castlevanias, you'll know that the jumping physics and the actual motion of Simon Belmont wasn't the best. That was the point of that.
Yeah, like, this game is actually, you have a way more flexible jump than you would in Castlevania, where the jump arcs are practically locked.
Yeah, I'm like.
But the action in this game is pretty much very slow and deliberate. You need to think about what you're doing and then execute it rather than flailing around and trying to bounce from one thing to the next as quickly as possible.
Yeah. And let's see. I'm trying to think. And if you play Metroidvanias for the exploration, you might be disappointed here. There is some exploration. Don't get me wrong, but it's not. It's definitely not like Metroid levels of exploration here. You're often going to be pointed down a specific path because you can't. There's a lot more barriers than usual for a Metroidvania game.
Yeah, it's pretty reliable. A lot of like the overworld progression is you go until you come to a barrier, and then you go around that barrier and then do something to make it so you can pass the barrier later.
Right.
Like right after the first dungeon, there are like 3 or 4 in a row of you get to a gap you can't jump, so you have to like climb up to another area and go around, and then you get to the other side and there's a button you can press that makes a moving platform appear.
Yeah. Another warning: this game does rely on some, does have some, like in my estimation, some cheap rooms, like when they have a bunch of fire cannons up against each other, and it's almost impossible not to get hit.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. It's nothing too major, but this game may frustrate you. Let's see. Anything else to cover? I think we've mostly got everything down. Pricing. So the game is $10.
That seems like a good price to me.
Yeah, I think that's about the best price for this game. I
mean, it has a good amount of game. Not like it's not vast and expansive, but it has a good amount of time and experience in it. So.
Yeah, it's long enough and it has enough replayability where I'd say $10 is good. Any more than that, and no.
Yeah, if this was over 15, I definitely wouldn't have picked it up to play.
Even 15,
based on looks.
Yeah.
And 15, I would have thought was definitely on the high side.
Yeah, I'm like.
So 10 is good. I don't think you need to wait until this is on sale for it to be worth it. I think $10 is good.
Yeah. And so overall I thought it was a decent game, solid, not spectacular. It sets out what to do, but don't go in expecting an all-time classic either. Like this would be more in NES terms, this would be more like a Blaster Master or a Little Samson, something from the, a good B-tier game from that era, but, you wouldn't be mentioning in the same breath to say DuckTales or Mega Man, Castlevania, and whatnot.
Super Mario Brothers 3.
Yes. I think they get the point.
Yeah.
So that'll about do it for our review of Alwa's Awakening. Be sure to tune in a little bit later as we have our second game to review in The Inner World.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, until such time, I wish you good gaming.